Hello and welcome to West Country Wanderings. Welcome to one in my well sort of railway series. It's not a proper railway as such. Didn't know what to call this. I am going to put this in my Lost Railway Walks, but it isn't actually a railway as such. What we're looking at today is the Dramway in South Gloucestershire. Effectively, it was a tramway, and I'll explain all about it as we go on today. This will probably be one of two or three parts looking at different sections of it as it goes through South Gloucestershire. And currently just outside the village of Bitton, I can see Keynsham over there to my right and the Avon Valley. And it's to the River Avon Valley, or the River Avon should I say, that we're heading now. I'm on a section of the Dramway. There you can see it still quite clearly delineated along this section here. So we're going to continue along here till we come to a place called a Londonderry Wharf. And it was at Londonderry Wharf that the Dramway met the River Avon. But why was it built? And what purpose did it serve? Now, the most obvious visible sign that this was once a tramway are the set blocks, the limestone set blocks in the ground that once held the rails in place. So that was what it was for. Predates the railway in this area. In fact, I've just been filming at the Avon Valley Railway just behind me there for one of my railway series steam version. But this wasn't steam, this was actually a horse-drawn tramway, and we've come to one similar to this on Bodmin Moor in Cornwall. Very, very similar, though there, instead of being limestone, they were granite sets because of all the granite quarries on Bodmin there. But we're not in Cornwall today, we're here in South Gloucestershire, and there is delightful route that this tramway goes between here, the River Avon, which is where I'm heading to, back up there to Coalpit Heath. And the name of that village is a big clue as to the purpose of this tramway. Now, I've already only come, less than a quarter of a mile on the Dramway. We've already come to a key feature here. This is a tunnel here, which carried the tramway, or the Dramway as it's known here in South Gloucestershire, right through there, down to the wharf at Londonderry Wharf by the River Avon. Unfortunately, the tunnel is blocked further on. There's no light getting through there. Just had a good look in it, and it's certainly filled with water and also associated debris, bits of cars and bits of tree stumps, that sort of thing. So you can't actually get access to that. We need to go on a diversion around here. But yes, this is one of the major construction projects. There you go. You can see the whole thing there. I'll insert some photographs of it as well. One of the main construction projects of this tramway here in South Gloucestershire to enable it to connect Coalpit Heath to the River Avon. So that's looking back where I've just walked on from the main roundabout on the main road between Bath and Bristol, where it interconnects with the Keynsham Road, which would have been the Keynsham Turnpike when this tramway was running. Now, on this fence post here, it's really interesting because looks like they've actually utilised the original rails. You can see they're much thinner than ordinary rails that would have been used on ordinary railway lines. So you can see what they would have done here. Now, because we can't walk through that tramway tunnel here in South Gloucestershire, I need to walk across this field so we can catch up with the line of our tramway again before it meets the wharf. And I think back in the 1970s you could still see some rails down there. I'm not expecting to see any rails there today, but it'd be good to see the location of where this line went to. Now, what's really interesting about this tramway, first of all, it has a very complicated history. I can't remember all the facts, hence my notebook today, and we'll go through some of those later in this video, the first part here on the Dramway. And it has an interesting feature, a very, very clever feature, and they made the most of the contours, of the geography, the area. The village of Coalpit Heath is some 400 feet above sea level. And where we get to the River Avon, it's just a little bit above sea level. So you've got that gradient difference. Now, this tramway was built to carry coal from all of the collieries in and around Coalpit Heath, and some other ones as well, which we'll talk about, because there was various little branch lines and spurs to the collieries in this part of South Gloucestershire. And it got coal out of those collieries to take it down to the wharf at Londonderry Wharf onto the River Avon, and then it went into boats and ships, and it could be taken into both the major city of Bristol and also along to the city of Bath as well. So it was a major provider of coal in the early part of the 19th century to feed the homes in the big cities of Bristol and Bath. And it utilised the gradient, that falling gradient from Coalpit Heath down to the River Avon, which meant effectively it didn't need to have pulling power to take it down to the river. Of course, the coal was then emptied into boats and ships on the River Avon at the wharf there, and then they only needed to haul the empty trucks back, obviously being a lot lighter, so they needed less horsepower to do that, to pull them back to Coalpit Heath so they could be replenished with coal again. So I'm almost at the River Avon already. That over there is, I think that's Londonderry Farm, because it was Londonderry Wharf, and the line kind of split. So you had that tunnel bit going off, and I'm going to see if I can walk around to see the other end of where that tunnel comes out. Can't promise anything, but I have found this, which is really interesting. This old building here, which is just off the Dramway footpath, you've got rails here, which is very clear there. See those uprights? I'll superimpose what I just filmed with that, and I'm guessing this is probably used maybe as a coal store. I'm not sure, but it's too small to have been like a locomotive shed. As I say, it was horses, possibly stables, which may have been used there. And there's another interesting little building here as well, which almost looks like a bus stop, but we're not on any roads here, so oh, there's actually a pile of rubble here, and there's some more bits of rails that are bent through. Look at this. You can see that there. Yes, you've got some lot more rails there, and I think they've been utilised for gate posts and fence posts, and obviously no longer used. But yes, we have this curious building there. It does look like at some point it had a new roof lined on it, because it's got like a UPVC liner there and the guttering, so that's probably dates it to 70s or 80s, but that's a really interesting building here on the Dramway. Got this interesting little bridge here, very ancient bridge, which carries a little tributary of the River Avon over to enable, well, just a track would have served the farm building, and it also now serves as a footpath following on the bank of the Avon. So this here is the River Avon, the North Wiltshire Avon. It's the one that rises, well, half of it rises in Tetbury in the southern part of Gloucestershire, part of it rises in North Wiltshire, then going through places like Malmesbury, Castle Combe, Chippenham, and then heading on through Bath. Well, it's already come through Bath here, and it's then making its way across to Bristol with Brunel's famous Clifton suspension bridge going over the top of it, and Avonmouth Gorge, all that. So it is quite high at the moment. We've actually got flooding in the field here. You can see that, and it is quite sticky walking along the banks of the Avon here, but I just want to continue it around. So that the Dramway officially ends back there where we saw that what was possibly a coal storage, but I want to see the other end of the tunnel if I possibly can. And then we're going to make our way into, if I got time, to Willsbridge, around Willsbridge Mill, which is the home of the Avon Wildlife Trust. The other thing to say is what I'm walking on now, you're not going to believe this, yes, it's the Monarch's Way, yay! I did a walk the other day in Dorset and on the southwest coast path, and that was also the Monarch's Way, but here we are back on the Monarch's Way again here on West Country Wanderings. So behind me here, just round about there, you can just see the top of it there, that was formerly Fry's chocolate factory, later became Cadbury's chocolate factory, so that's Keynsham on that side of the River Avon there, and now been converted into apartments, and there's an estate there as well, just around where Cadbury's used to be here in South Gloucestershire. The Avon Valley Railway, which I've just been filming this morning, the steam train. In fact, I was filming Carol, which is the Polish steam locomotive. They also have got a locomotive which used to work here. And also a place called Salford, just a bit further on. And that, I think, will be in steam again in Easter. So maybe we'll be able to, hopefully, come back to that. I think Easter's going to be a busy time because there's lots of events happening around in the West Country at Easter, so I will try and fit that in because I haven't yet been able to capture that wonderful purple coloured locomotive on the Avon Valley Railway. We have this curious building here which has nothing to do with the Dramway or coal or anything like that. It's right next to the river, so the river is just here. I would imagine, judging by the building, it's probably late 60s, 70s, and it's probably maybe a pumping station or something to do with water treatment, something of that order, but it's no longer in use. Yes, I think this concrete block was connected to that building, redundant building just behind it, again to do with water drainage. So this here is Keynsham Lock on the River Avon. And just the other side of that is a weir, so that's why the lock is needed here on the Avon. And Keynsham is a point where you have two rivers. You've got the River Avon, but also it's joined at Keynsham by the River Chew, as in the name of places like Chew Magna in North Somerset. And in the distance over there, the other side of the river and the floodplain, which is definitely flooded at the moment, and that is the Cotswold Escarpment, Cotswold Hills. So this here would have been the site of the original wharf, terminus of the Dramway, and there is our river there, with lots of boats and a boatyard on the other side of it. Let's have a closer look. Now we have a grouping of 3 buildings here which potentially have all got connections to the Dramway here. So this must have been some kind of storage facility for the Dramway and the terminus here. And as I say, the river is just over there. That's wonderful to see that. That's terrific. Yes, it certainly looks about the right age, into like the 2nd and 3rd decade of the 19th century, so about 200 years old. That would be right for our Dramway there, and you can see the limestone blocks that it was originally constructed of. What its exact purpose was, I'm not too sure. Now the line of our Dramway would have come through there. Remember that tunnel we saw near the beginning of the video? The other end of the tunnel is there, or rather beyond that little tree in the middle of the screen now. Unfortunately, there is a fence over there and I can't walk that way because it is private land, so I won't be able to get to show you. But we still have two other buildings here, which I do think they were potentially connected to the wharf here as well. So we have this one here, and again, the exact purpose of it, I'm not too sure. If I can have a look at my notes when I get back and do the edit, and if it's known, I will put that in. But you can also see some blue bricks there on the left of it, which indicates railway use. What about railway connections to the Dramway as we go on? That looks lovely out in the floodplain here alongside the river. It really gives it a sense of how this once was. And again, the fence here clearly made out of old rails. More about the rails in a bit as well. But I can't continue that way because it's private land, but you can see there the contour, how the contour fell down to the river and how it wouldn't need pulling with those trucks laden with coal. Very clearly along here we've got more railway fencing delineating the line to our third and final building, the biggest one of the three, here at the wharf side. Now this is interesting here, the usual sleepers there, been repurposed for gateposts, but if you look underneath the fence you can see they've also repurposed some of the limestone sets. They wouldn't have been in that location, I don't think, because that isn't the line of our tramway, but they've been moved from their original location by the wharf, or the line of it that I just showed you here, to stop it being boggy, I think, for cattle moving through this gate line. And again, yet more rail over there. Gate was open, doesn't say private, there's no barbed wire or anything, so I'm following through it. That's our line of our tramway again. You can see the groove in the landscape there. Now we're back of the third building here. You can see the river down there, you can see the tilt in the gradient from this angle. And I think potentially that could have been used for the horses' stables, to have hauled those empty trucks back up to Coalpit Heath from here, the wharf side. So that's looking back at our track bed that was for the Dramway here in South Gloucestershire, looking back down towards the river. Now, though I could get across the field at this point, I can't go any further in the direction of the Dramway towards the other end of the portal of the tunnel. See if I can see it from the road though, because that's clearly private property and I'm certainly not going to wander over there. But again, more evidence around, more bits of rail in this area. So the other end of our tunnel actually crosses underneath this road here. You saw the portal of it. That's the gateway to Londonderry Farm on the left there. And it went under there, but obviously I can't get over there because that is clearly private. So I'm going to retrace my steps back to the Avon Valley Railway and the Bristol and Bath footpath and the Monarch's Way. So while I'm walking back to the Avon Valley Railway, I tell you about a bit of history to this tramway. Is in fact two companies, not one, and a colliery extension. The first company was the Bristol and Gloucestershire Tramway Company, and the second company was the Avon and Gloucestershire Tramway, or Dramway as it's known locally. And this is the one here. This is the Avon and Gloucestershire Tramway, and it ran from Mangotsfield near the famous triangle. Yes, the one that was created the ghost train. Was it Arnold Ridley? That triangle there in the Midland Railway line went from that area, before that was in existence, down here to the River Avon, and it was at Mangotsfield where it connected to the Bristol and Gloucestershire tramway, which was coming out of Coalpit Heath. And we'll have a look at the remains of that in another episode here, the Tramway, here on West Country Wanderings. But yeah, so two railway lines, or two tramways should I say, that were later built. Most of the Bristol and Gloucestershire one formed the Midland Railway line that went from Mangotsfield into Bristol, because you have that tunnel, of course, at Staple Hill, and that took up a lot of that particular company's profits, building that tunnel, which we will explore because that forms part of the Bristol and Bath cycleway as well, as it goes through Warmley and then curves around North Bristol before heading in a southerly direction to Bristol city centre. But yeah, this one here, Avon and Gloucestershire tramway. But yes, this building here I do think was part of the tramway, and I do believe it was used to store horses. You can see some of the what would have been those barn doors there. Just have a quick look at that bit closer, which has now been bricked up. I don't know if you can see that, there's two of them there, and I think that there would have been like the barn doors you see on stables, various different sites there, which have been bricked up breeze blocks when it was repurposed, probably for an agricultural use. Now the whole Dramway network's in effect of loop from the floating harbour in the centre of Bristol to Culpit Heath and back down the gradient that we've seen here, cutting through Wills Bridge and then down to the harbour here, Londonderry Wharf, was completed in 1835. And when it was completed, it had an immediate effect. What it did do was it immediately lowered the price of coal in the Bristol and Bath area. It's a concept we've come across before when that happened with the Thames and Severn Canal in Gloucestershire, where it reduced the price as soon as those were connected up. But same effect here with the tramway. It didn't have a long life because, as I say, part of it was superseded by a proper railway, if you like, what's known nowadays as heavy rail. But there is an interesting characteristic of the tramway, or Dramway, and that was near Mangotsfield you had a section of the proper line, if you like, which was broad gauge. But the Dramway was actually standard gauge, and there was a section where the two ran in parallel. It was still running down to the wharf at that time, and the broad gauge section had steam trains running on it, and the standard gauge had horse-drawn trucks. I think that's the only place in the entire United Kingdom where you had standard gauge and broad gauge running in parallel like that, and in effect two separate lines. But yeah, unless you know different, and drop a comment if you know of another location of that, but as far as I'm aware, that's the only location where that actually happened. Fascinating. Another unique feature of the Dramway was the fact it used flanged wheels with edged base, malleable cast iron. Didn't often happen, so you had that what's known as a fish belly profile on it. So that's see if I can find a photo of that so it makes more sense. But yeah, that's quite unique for tramway use, and I think it was then later developed in other ones, but this was probably a later tramway because you had tramways which predated this one by some considerable number of years. Another unique feature of the Dramway is that the railway chairs, were fixed to those limestone sets that we saw at the beginning part of the video, not using iron nails, cast iron nails, but using oak pins, which is quite unusual. I don't know how long those I'm having to wander around here because it's very, very boggy ground. Don't know how long those oak pins survived, whether they rotted. After a while they probably would have to have been replaced, but as I say, the line didn't go on for that long, so I doubt whether they were changed that often in the Dramway's lifetime. Made my way back up to the Avon Valley Railway almost, and the locomotive Carroll is in action today with the diesel shunter, and I'll put a link to that video, separate video, which I filmed earlier today before going on this lost tramway walk here in South Gloucestershire. I'll close with a shot of it just going across the embankment there before I head back to Bitton Station. Probably grab a coffee there before I make my way home. Hope you've enjoyed this Lost Railway walk today here in South Gloucestershire, looking at the Dramway, part 1. We're looking at other aspects of it in future episodes here on West Country Wanderings. All the best for now. Bye bye.